Stage 2 of the Santos Tour Down Under, starting with the Coleman's Group race between Loberthal and Stirling. Loberthal, a first-time start for the event. Little bit of history there. Stirling, Paul, was in on the very first edition of this race back in 1999.
But a slightly different finish on this occasion because after all, the race is going to go 3 times around the city of Stirling on what is going to be a very testing finale for the race this year.
Well, the pattern started very early. After 2 kilometres, Martin Kohler, the man who was in the breakaway on the previous day, was at it again. 2 kilometres later, he was joined by Will Clark on the Uni SA team, a Tasmanian. And there was no reaction from the field, and very quickly the time gaps opened.
They certainly did open up to monstrous proportions, but the main field, I think, happy to recover after what had been a very hot opening stage, with temperatures soaring to 42 degrees Celsius. At 22 degrees Celsius, the riders, I think, enjoying their day.
This race had also started without 2 riders who were left with broken bones after yesterday. Anyway, into Mount Torrens, 24 kilometres of the 148 covered. Martin Kohler taking a 3-second time bonus, moving him to within 1 second of the overall lead of Andre Greipel.
Yes, and coming up from behind, watch this man on the right-hand side in the orange jersey of Team Rabobank, former under-23 champion of the world, nicknamed Bling Matthews, getting himself a single point, but that single second, in fact, is going to bring him a little bit closer to the top of the overall leaderboard.
A little reminder too that Michael Matthews, turning pro at the beginning of last season, was winning this very stage of this race just 12 months ago. Not quite the same route. On to the next climb, the only real noted climb of the day in the Skoda King of the Mountains, Fox Creek. This was taking us here to the 47-kilometre point, and the farmers here in the Adelaide Hills catching on to what they've seen on the television sets from the Tour de France for many years, a bicycle in the hay.
At this point, the 2-man breakaway group had almost a 10-minute advantage over the majority of the main field, who for the moment was still not really interested in chasing down in earnest, bearing in mind they knew that this stage would have a serious sting in the tail.
So 2 riders still clear, Will Clark, Martin Kohler. As expected, Kohler had taken the sprint in Mount Torrens, so he's returning the favour now to Will Clark. The 10 points at the top of the climb at Fox Creek, making him the next leader in the Skoda King of the Mountains competition. It will be he who would pull on the green-spotted jersey tomorrow.
The 2 riders continued to consolidate their advantage as they knew they were heading down to the next sprint point of the day, the Jayco sprint at Balhanna, after 62 kilometres covered.
Now, Balhanna is famous for 2 things, and the other one is Australian pies, which are very famous in this part of the country. But for the sprint now, this was doubly important. Kohler not challenged by Clark. He gets a 3 seconds. He's now literally the leader on the road by 2 seconds. But look at this, Paul. Immediately after the sprint, he's decided to fall away and leave Clark to go alone. And there's still a long way to go.
Well, this was obviously a pre-prepared plan by those guys, because they realised, Team BMC, that there may not be a chase in the early part of this race, and if Kohler could get himself some time bonuses, it would theoretically put him into the lead on the road. However, there's still an awful long way to go in these very difficult circuits around Stirling.
A massive crowd, the biggest we've ever seen in Stirling, and they were here to cheer one man. They'd watched him go around this circuit 4 times. His lead of 10 minutes, they're down to 7 minutes, they're desperate moments. But Will Clark was enjoying his moment on the long climb of some 6 kilometres up to the finish in Stirling. He knew the field was closing in. From 7 minutes at just 21 kilometres earlier, it was now down to little more than a minute, and he didn't care. This was going to be his greatest ever victory, and by taking it, he wouldn't get the ochre jersey, but he was going to get an enormous amount of satisfaction.
He certainly was. He'd conserved enough of his advantage to get himself the stage victory on this occasion, but the main field absolutely tore into town over that final lap, and he needed 1 minute 36 seconds if he was going to take the overall lead, but that was not going to happen.
In the race for second place, more small time bonuses at stake on the line, but Michael Matthews, the winner of this race a year ago, and that was his first win as a pro, is on the far right. Look at the kick in those legs as he comes over the line. He's challenged briefly by Simon Gerrans, the Australian champion, but Matthews gets the second place finish. Gerrans had to be content with third about 65 seconds after Will Clark had crossed the line. He'd lost 6 minutes on that final circuit, but you think he cared? This was a great result for the Uni SA rider from Tasmania, and straight after the line, Andrew Voss caught up with him, and here's what he had to say, and I'll tell you, he was a pretty happy man.
Yeah, well, like I think that's what everyone expected, and they gave me a bit of rope, so I got such a big gap, and then you know, it's sort of my speciality is sort of just to keep going. So that's what happened, and it's unbelievable, really.
Well, he's only 26 years of age, and this is a great result. He rode with Leopard Trek last year, lost his contract with them, but he needs a big sponsor this year and thoroughly deserves one as well. The crowd are really fired up by this. But the man who gained most, the new leader of this race, is now Martin Kohler. Here he is with Paul Sherwin.
Yeah, it's very cool. We had this little funny plan this morning, and we said, yeah, just go for it. I'm close on the GC. I was third overall before, and I tried. And again, the first attack was the successful one. It's a little bit surprising, but if nobody's following me, why not?
Why not indeed? Well, next stage will take us onwards for 135 kilometres to Victor Harbor. We'll see you there.